Afternoon, everyone. Listen, I know me doing videos whilst I'm walking is not particularly popular, but I've been stuck indoors all day and I've had a really busy couple of days and I needed to get out and I wanted to do this video and I just didn't think I was going to get the opportunity unless I did it like this. So I apologise if this isn't your favourite format, but there you go. So last night, really mixed emotions about it, to be honest, because number one, I don't think it's the worst result we could have ended up with. Number two, I'm torn between whether we improved our performance or whether it was much the same. I'm kind of stuck in my mind about how I feel about it. So on the face of it, whilst I was watching it, I felt that there were patches that were really good. There was some quite good interplay and kind of movement and stuff that I quite liked. And I felt for long periods we felt really solid. But at the same time, I just felt the game really was screaming out for a level of composure that just wasn't there. And I know we've talked about it a lot, about having a attacking midfielder, three in the middle, that kind of stuff. But it just seems like that's just not how Conte wants to play. And that is frustrating. And at times I felt the game was a bit boring. Not boring because we were really not doing anything, but boring because it was predictable that we were doing the same thing all the time. And when you do the same thing all the time, it becomes easy for other teams to know what you're doing. And when they do that, it means that they can nullify your attack or whatever. So it was a really strange one, I've got to be honest. Again, I was surprised at the lineup, given the difficult game they had on Saturday rather, and the fact that we've got another difficult away game this weekend. It just seems a little bit odd when we've been calling out for rotation and Conte's been calling out for the ability to rotate, that we're not actually rotating. And I guess that kind of means that he's not confident in the players that he wants to rotate with, or he has to rotate with, that they're going to be better than what he's putting out. But on the other side of that, I do understand that why he put Emerson in, because he's now going to be missing for 3 games because of his stupid sending off. So that means he's going to have to bring somebody else in. Now, whether that's going to be Doherty, which seems the most likely, or Spence, who's very unlikely, then it would, for me, I just felt that maybe having some game time for Doherty might be useful. But again, who am I to question Conte? And I know there are lots of fans that are starting to question Conte, and I think that's a really big debate. And we can probably talk about that in a minute. But overall, I felt the game was dangerously poised going right towards the end, and I was almost wishing the minutes away and praying that we didn't just throw it away in the last minute or two and end up going down to yet another defeat. So when the final whistle finally went, I was almost, relieved that it was over and that we would come away with a valuable point. Bearing in mind we've now got 2 home games before the final one at Marseille. So yeah, it was a really odd feeling. I was really hoping for a better performance, although I do think to an extent it was better than Sunday's, but we are still nowhere near our levels. Sonny, again, off the boil again, lots of running, but just doesn't seem able to trap the ball at the minute in these kind of games and do enough with it. Had a couple of really good opportunities. Perisic also nearly had one in the back of the net. But what doesn't get called out enough, and he's not above criticism, is that Harry Kane was poor last night for most of the game. He had a couple of patches, but for most of the game he was poor. And he does go like that, and he hasn't been great this season yet. I mean, I'm sure he will be. Got great faith in the guy. But he hasn't been yet, and I think, when we're calling out Sonny and other players, including Emerson, I think it's not fair to not call out when one of your star players isn't doing particularly well either. Because, on another day, Harry Kane would have annihilated a team like this. So, but I guess the other thing, Emerson, coming back to him, this issue of how poorly he's been, he kind of feels like a bit of a scapegoat, although I've not been his biggest fan, and I can't make out that he's doing better than he is. But I don't feel that he's the worst right back we've ever had. I do feel that he has a lot to learn and he makes mistakes, but then so does everyone. And I don't think he can go unmissed. That leads me on to the other thing. Hugo, man, every time the ball goes back to his feet, shits the life out of me. It really does. And there's a couple of occasions there that could have got ourselves in big trouble. So I think, on the balance of things, it was probably a fair result. Frankfurt themselves seemed pretty decent. They played pretty well. They had some good moments, and if they'd have been a better side, they could have easily put it against us in the other direction. So trying to be level-headed and fair, I guess a 0-0 result is probably as well as it can be. The final thing about the team and the selection and all that I just wanted to pick up was poor old Brian Hill. He come on right at the death, 10 minutes or whatever it was, and I was just winning him on to really put in a performance. But I cannot understand how he's just pushed off the ball so easily. Everyone will get points to the fact that he's small, but he ain't no smaller than Luka Modric. Luka Modric don't go over that easy, so that worries me why he's like that. And then on the flip side of it, he worked really hard trying to win the ball back. And there was one occasion where he literally sprinted right away across towards our own goal area, stopped the ball going out, and then managed to wriggle past a couple of players running up the left side. And I thought, no, that's decent, that's effort, that's work, that's what you want. But he's got to find a way of being able to stay strong and stay on his feet to get anywhere near this team, because it's just not happening. So overall, I guess we just have to say it was a fair reflection, fair result at the end. A big shout out to the Frankfurt fans, who I thought were magnificent. They didn't stop singing for the whole 90 minutes, and it was really audible on the TV. you know, you could really hear it all the way through, and it didn't stop. So fair play to them for that. But just kind of going back to the final bit about Conte and where he is and all the rest of it, I've got to be honest, whilst I'm not loving the football, to be fair, I think that's fair enough to say, and not loving particularly the lack of flexibility, shall we say, in what he's doing, even though from a fan's point of view, and I get his point, like fans can be fans and they can say what they like, but actually he's the one that has to make the decisions. I do get that. But when he's looking at Emerson as the best we've got, it makes me worry about how good Spence or Doherty or Lucas, if he's fit, are going to be in that position. That's a big worry. Anyway, I think the main thing from me is this manager is considered one of the best managers out there. He would walk into any team in Europe as a manager. And I think if we were to lose him, I do worry where we go from there. And all those guys calling for Poch again, as much as I love Pochettino, I thought he was a great guy and all the rest of it, he never won us anything, never got us over the line. And it's always easy looking back, because the grass is always greener in the good old days. But I really feel we need to move on. And I just do worry that if we lose Conte, where do we go from there? Some kind of project with some unproven manager, some up and coming. Do we still want to be sitting there in 5 years' time saying that's another 5 years wasted of rebuilding and retrying? I think this guy has earned the right to be able to call the shots and call the shots with Levy and make him get the players that he wants to get. And he did say this is going to take time. It's a development. It's you know, it's going to be a few windows to go yet before he actually gets what he wants. So overall, I think ultimately we have to trust in the manager's choices. We have to stick with the manager's decisions and hope that he gets it right at some point. And it may not be this season. As desperate as we are for silverware, it may not be this season. And so we might have to just keep our patience just that much longer. But I'm prepared to, if I can see improvement, if I can see us progressing. And let's be fair, we've had, you know, one loss this season in the league, albeit to the ones we didn't want to lose to, but a team that are flying and are doing well and clearly wanted it more than we did. So just have to keep going, keep hanging on, keep believing and keep supporting. Up the Spurs.